is Thursday, October the 22nd. I am your host, KC Phoenix, and this is my daily thought. All right, I had to pull up some. I'm trying to get situated here in my chair again. Yesterday, you would see me fidgeting in my chair trying to get comfortable. I'm actually recording this early. Usually I record these episodes around 6:15 or so Pacific Standard Time, but I'm recording this around 2 because for those who don't know, I have another channel that deals with politics. And the debate is tonight, so I have to watch the debate. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead, record this episode during lunch, and then I can edit later on and post and get everything done on the social media platforms and all that stuff while watching the debate, which actually kind of works out good. So anyway, speaking of social media, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform, KIRWKC on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook.com/KIRWKC. If you are watching this on YouTube or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button followed by the notification bell. That will let you know when I upload new videos. Now, where to start? There was something I was looking to say before I went into my daily thought. I'm drinking cranberry juice. The last little bit of, for those who are watching, those who are listening, obviously you can't see me holding up the glass right now, but I'm drinking the last little bit of cranberry juice. Okay. Just a little sip. All right. There was something I wanted to say, and it was on my mind. And I can't think of what it was. It's not coming to me. And a thing just flashed on my phone telling me that a package was delivered. Usually I hear them when they're outside. I tell you, those Amazon delivery people are like ninjas sometimes. But yeah, let me just go ahead. Maybe that's the universe's way of telling me I just need to dive into my daily thought and wrap it on up. So I know last month, towards the end of last month, I had discussed, what was the title of that episode? It was Self-Esteem, Loving Yourself, and Ego. That's what the title of the episode was. And I recorded it for that daily thought on, I think it was September 22nd. Well, no, it wouldn't have been a month exactly. Probably like, it was in the 20s. It was at the end of September. So if you haven't watched or listened to that episode, feel free to do so. This is sort of related to that when it comes to ego, loving yourself, self-esteem, all that stuff, and also pride. Pride is an interesting thing. Pride is an episode within itself. But what I'm talking about, obviously, is what the title is, Don't Beg. Don't beg. When it comes to things in your life, it's okay to be persistent. You can be persistent. Like if you're pursuing something, persistence, perseverance, those things are great attributes to have. But it's a fine line where persistence and begging are. And to walk that line where you don't fall over into from being persistent to actually begging. Where let's say you want someone, you find someone attractive and you want them to go out with you. And you shoot your shot and they shoot you down. Or they block it. And you're like, okay, let me go ahead and try again, but I'll approach it a different way. That's okay. That's okay. But then when you get to like the third, fourth, or fifth time, and they're still saying no, if time passes and it's been years and they've been saying no, it's not something I personally would recommend. I'm not saying that it won't work. As a matter of fact, someone who's really successful, and you ought to check him out sometime. He's an amazing salesman, and also great at real estate. His name is Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone pursued his wife for, I believe it was 2 years. He kept asking her out, and she kept telling him no. And finally, after I think it was 2 years, she finally went out with him. And now they've been married ever since. So he was persistent. He didn't want to take no for an answer. He felt that was his soulmate. He wanted to go after her. That could be spun two ways. It could be spun where, okay, he has high self-esteem. He has a large ego because he was willing to humble himself to go after a woman for 2 years that kept on telling him no. After however many times he asked during the first month, during the second month, and so on and so forth. After the first year, she told him no all that year. And then the second year, he's asking more times again. She's still like no. And then finally, I guess ending in the second year, she says yes. And that could be spun as that he was confident in himself to be able to approach her and be persistent about it because he wanted her that bad and he was that persistent. Another way it can be spun is that he was desperate and that maybe he didn't have self-esteem, he didn't value himself or his time. Because he chose to still go after this particular woman when obviously there are plenty of women out here that more than likely he could have been happy with. He just may or may not know it. So there's two ways that it can be spun. This is where pride comes in. And like I said, pride itself is episode on its own. But when it comes to pride, the question is, how much pride do you have? Are you willing to, one might say, humble yourself or lower yourself? Because humble gives when someone says humble, it gives the what's the word I'm looking for? Universe, I'm looking for it. It's on the tip of my tongue. It gives the appearance of doing the noble thing. Oh, he humbled himself. That's so noble of him. That's so classy. That's so noble of him. He was able to swallow his pride and humble himself to continue to pursue something even after someone even after he was told no. With pride, it still goes to the other part where pride is like you don't lower yourself for anyone. That is the side I usually tend to err on. And as I said before, we can add the caveat right here and now. Everything is on a case-by-case basis. You can determine what your limits are, what your pride is, how far you're willing to go, what allows you to remain balanced. Personally, if someone tells me no once, I don't bring it up again. Because what's going through my head, and for those of you who have watched the show or listened to the show, I have a huge ego. And when I'm told no, I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm thinking in my head, that's their loss. It's not my loss. I did them a favor by asking them for whatever. So if I'm told no, it's like, okay. And if that individual or if that situation comes around, like I'll give you an example. Back a long time ago, I went to a convention with my god sister. I wasn't on the roster. It was a modeling convention. And it was with a modeling agency at the time because I was already with a smaller agency, but I was open to a larger agency. And one of the agencies at the convention, at the time, and obviously they're more of a loose memory. I was looking at some of their models and I was like, wow, I think I could pull that off. I think that could work. And I spoke to one of the scouts, just, to the side after the convention because I was mostly there to support my god sister, which she got some callbacks too. And my god sister, she still looks amazing to this day. Shout out to Tiffany, who had a birthday not too long ago. And when I went to the representative of the agency and asked him, I was like, hey, do you think do you think I have a look that might fit with your agency, maybe where I could submit a comp card or something in the future? And the rep was like, no, I don't think you have that look at all, and said it with an attitude. For me, in a situation like that, let's say 15 years later or 20 years later, I forgot what year that happened. I want to say that was probably that was 20 years, I think, because I was hanging out with my cousin a lot then, and that was 2000. So that was probably the year 2000. So let's say 20 years later, and I remembered the agency's name. And let's say the agency contacted me and was like, oh my gosh, we had seen you on YouTube, or we had seen you on this or that, and we'd really love to work with you. We have a contract for you, da 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 da. And we'll even give you a signing bonus. We'll give you an advance, whatever, and we'll just recoup it later. All that jazzy stuff. We just love for you to sign with us. You know what I'll say? No. No. And some people might say, wow, that's pride. I'm like, yeah, you can call it what you want, but first of all, when I got the no then, back 20 years ago, I wasn't going to follow up with them again 6 months later or 3 months later or a year later and say, hey, just checking in again. Maybe has anything changed? Because in all honesty, full disclosure, when it comes to the modeling industry, the looks do change constantly, where your look may not be in at the time, whether you're commercial or editorial, but 3 months or 6 months later, your look is in. So full disclosure on that. However, back to this, I still would have said no, and I wouldn't have followed up because I was told no. And I'm not about to beg to be with someone's agency. So, and same thing with relationships or going out on a date or whatever. I'm not about to beg you to go out on a date with me. I'm not about to beg you to hook up with me. I'm not about to beg you to give me a job. I'm not about to beg you to be my friend. I don't beg. Because to me, begging is tacky. When you are confident within yourself, when you have self-esteem, when you love yourself, when you have an ego, you don't beg anyone for anything. You just don't. Now, for those who want to humble themselves and be noble and all that stuff, like I said, everything's on a case-by-case basis. If you're comfortable with doing that, fine. And there may be a situation where you're comfortable doing it with a specific individual, but not with another individual. Where if you've been with someone, and I'll just use a relationship, if you've been with someone for 5 years and they're saying, you know what, I think we should go our separate ways. If you want to humble yourself, be noble and say, hey, I really think that we should talk this out. I really think we should hang in there. I think we have more, more in our relationship. I think we can hold it together. And you want to humble yourself and do the roses and the flowers and all this other stuff because you feel that person is worth it. Who am I to judge? Who's anybody to judge? Really? It's just, I really believe, first of all, everything has its season. And seasons can be short, they can be long. Short as in for a second, and they can be long as in for a lifetime. If things happen, they happen for a reason. Again, it can be spun two different ways. One could spin it where the universe is testing you to see how you will handle it. Will you humble yourself and beg a little bit? Or will you just be like, whatever, okay, bye, type thing, to see where your mindset is at? Or, to spin it another way, once the situation happens, the universe could say, I want to see where their self-esteem is at. Do they love themselves? Are they willing to just let the situation pass now that they've heard no? Are they fine with walking away? Will they be able to still stand strong on their own? You can spin it both ways. I'm telling you, giving you my opinion, because that's what this show is about, that begging is tacky in my eyes. So, and it's almost like you're asking to be noticed. You're asking to be validated. And as I mentioned before, as I quoted Drea, validation is for parking, not people. So if you have something or someone that you've pursued and you ran into a roadblock, you can decide what you want to do. You can either just walk away, or you can humble yourself, swallow your pride a little bit, make a few more attempts, and do that. But also another thing that's really good, especially when it comes to first attempts and being turned down, is that you can't miss what you never had. Just like with that modeling agency, when I had that interaction, I can't miss what I never had. I was also another modeling agency that turned me down. And I was close because they had a vote and I lost by one vote. It was IMG or whatever, the one that Tyra Banks was signed to, because my brother knew one of the agents there. And I had to send some pictures in and yada, yada, yada. And they looked them over and I lost by one vote. So had I got the extra vote, would have been signed with Tyra Banks and her agency. But that's another story for another day. But I never got signed to them. Okay, I can't miss what I never had. Oh well, life goes on as it has. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter what, I don't want to say incidents. It doesn't matter what moments occur in your life. One thing that will always remain is that life will go on. The earth will not stop. Every moment that happens in your life, good, bad, or indifferent, the earth's not going to stop. It's not going to say, oh, well, such and such had this moment. Oh, that wasn't such a good moment. Let's just stop everything. No, the earth's going to keep turning and life will keep going. So when it comes to begging, it's your choice on what you want to do. Personally, It's not my thing. Because if something blocks me, or if someone doesn't want to be in my life, it's their loss. It's not my loss. It's that simple. And that is because I have self-esteem. That's because I learned to love myself. Like I said before, my mother and my godmother probably gave me too much self-esteem. But it's come in handy in a world where everyone constantly wants to be recognized, where everyone constantly needs the approval of others, where everyone constantly wants to fit in and cares about what people think, or cares that someone doesn't like them or doesn't want them. It's amazing when I think about it in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, begging, I don't recommend it. Now, when it comes to pursuing goals, that's different in my eyes. If you have a goal where you want something, if you have a material goal, go for it. You will run into roadblocks pursuing a goal, one that will benefit you. You'll run into roadblocks, but you have to be able to determine. I have to take another sip of my cranberry juice for those who are listening to the podcast. All right. You have to determine what goals are worth pursuing, what goals are worth being persistent about. Because persistence and perseverance, those are the things that usually get you to your goal, come hell or high water. Breaking it down a little bit more, you have to determine what, for the goal, what contribution, if accomplished, will it bring to your life as a whole? And do the pros outweigh the cons? And you could say that with pursuing a relationship, just like I told you with Grant Cardone when he pursued his wife. Apparently, in his eyes, the pros outweighed the cons because his goal was to go out on a date with his wife, which his wife is very lovely. She's very lovely and she's very intelligent too. But you also have to determine that as well. But when it comes to begging, and again, persistence and begging, fine line. 20 texts in a day, that's not persistence, that's begging. 15 phone calls in a day, that's not persistence, that's begging. But personally, like I said, I don't beg. But in the world that we live in, there are, how did my grandmother say it? There are 3 sides to every story. There's your side, their side, and the Lord's side. So any moment or situation can be spun 3 ways. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you to those who have been supporting the show. I really appreciate it. I see the numbers. I see the countries that listen to the podcast. And it seems like more countries are about to have access to the podcast because things are happening behind the scenes, and I'm thankful for that. And yeah, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. KIRWKC on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook.com/KIRWKC. YouTube, Daily Motion, if you're watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, follow by the notification bell. That's all I got. Until next time, and I love every single one of you, be blessed.